All right, here we go. Chris, thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Dean Cottrill here from T360. I run our brokerage consulting division. Today, I want to let everybody come in here. We're slowly, this is how this works. It takes a few minutes for everybody to kind of get into the Zoom room. But as people are coming in here, I'll talk slower to do the introductions. But we're excited here. We're going to dive into a really great topic. It's brand. I get excited about this topic because it's so interesting to me. And we've got a wonderful person with us, Frederick Herot, part of our T360 team, has got incredible background in marketing. And we'll talk about that in just a second. So Frederick, good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for inviting me.
You bet. So I'm going to jump into my keynote because, guys, we're going to go through a keynote. This is what, for those of you who haven't joined us before, if those of you are watching this as a recording, this is what we call a flash webinar. We hit a topic that's really key and critical to the running of a brokerage or a large team. We bring in some really great talent to talk about it, and it's flash. So we're doing it in a short period of time. We're going to get a lot of content in that period of time. And in the chat, for those that are with us, if you have any questions as we're going through, just throw them in the chat. I know Chris Riley is our marketing director. He's going to be putting, he'll respond back, and he'll also let us know what's in there so we can go ahead and answer any questions that might arise. So thank you for joining us. Let's go ahead and dive in here. I'm going to share my screen. And there is the first slide we've got. So first, this is the title, Build Connection with a Compelling Brand Story. We've got today's guest, as I mentioned earlier, Frederick Herot. He's our Vice President of Marketing for T360. We're very privileged to have Frederick with us on our team. The background, Frederick comes from a rich background in the real estate space. He was with, I'm trying to go before Frederick, and this is going to be a conversation with Frederick and I, but where were you before Weichert?
I was at William Ravis Real Estate in Connecticut.
That's it. William Ravis. So large independent. William Ravis was the marketing director there. Moved on to Weichert. Jim Weichert, worked directly with Jim Weichert at Weichert Realtors, one of the largest independents. I had a number of years with Weichert as well, and a very large independent. And Frederick had a lot to do with building their online lead generating marketing that helped bring a lot of business into that organization, which actually then launched him from that position into being the marketing director for Realtor.com, which he was there for 14 years. And then we're really happy to bring and have Frederick on our team to help support our clients. So the topic we're getting into here and we're going to discuss is brand. We're going to have a little fun going into this and talking about it. And again, if anybody has any questions, let us know. All right, so part of this is actually framed from one of the modules. We have a program called the T3 Fellows Program. We're going to talk about the end. It's an MBA style leadership program for people who run real estate companies or large organizations like large teams, and they're looking to get that type of support to take that business to the next level. One area is brand, as we talk specifically about what is your brand. How are you communicating, and are you being consistent? So we want to talk about crafting your unique pitch. And so what is different about you? How do you tell your story? Talking about marketing and brand, tying that together, and then use a fun and fundamental concept. It's the Jungian archetypes. All right, say that 10 times fast. But this comes from research from Carl Jung. Jung is his last name, and the Jungian archetypes. So we're going to talk about that in just a second, dive into it. And then we get into reviewing materials and how to support brokerages and large teams and making sure they're consistent. So let me give you some more details about this. And anytime, Frederick, you want to jump in, let me make this a little bigger. There, here we go. That's better. So here we go, the archetypes. In the Jungian archetypes, there's 12 archetypes, and you can see the circle here. And you can see quartiles from stability and independence. We've got the innocent, the sage, the explorer, and then you have the outlaw, the magician, the hero. And then we have the lover, jester, everyman, caregiver, ruler, and creator. And I'm going to give you a couple examples of some organizations that have positioned themselves in here. Like, for example, the archetype sage. This is going to be typically, you see a lot of news media kind of go into that. They want to be the sage, the information provider of top knowledge And that's going to be like the Wall Street Journal. They put themselves in the sage archetype, and they're very consistent in that marketing. Explorer, this is going to be like REI, the company REI. There's going to be others. It's going to be Red Bull. That's the Explorer. Outlaw is going to be Harley Davidson, as an example. And I can go around and around and hit this, but what the key and the reason I'm bringing this up is for those that are running brokerages or running large teams, one of the challenges that we see is brokerages or large team leaders, like one day you're going to be a jester, which is like a Geico or a Liberty Mutual, right? And the next day you decide you want to be the sage in the market, and you know everything about the market, and you've got intense knowledge of what's going on in the marketplace. And then the next day you're going to jump out and be the outlaw. And then so you're jumping all over the place. And what's happening is there's no consistent messaging going out that's going to connect people. And this is one of the things that Carl Jung's research found. It's called the collective unconscious. This is the instinctive drivers that underpin all of us, all humankind. So if you have two people here, Mr. and Mr. A, Miss B, for example, you have we all have conscious thought. We also have individual unconscious thought. And then there's a collective unconscious that's common among all of us, which ties in these archetypes. All right. And let me get just one more thing. And then Frederick, I want to pull you into this, get your insight into what we've just talked about so far. But in this section, kind of tie this together and put a bow on it to try to hopefully make some sense on what I'm talking about here. Is stories use archetypes to connect audiences across eras and cultures. So think about the collective unconscious, for example, that we all have in common, all humankind. Luke Skywalker, so you have the Jedi Knight, Luke Skywalker, and Odysseus from way back in the Greek days of being the hero archetype. We all understand the hero archetype, the one that self-discovers their strengths, their inner ability, their outward abilities to make a difference in their life and other lives. That's a hero archetype. And it's been consistent over generations, but it connects us. We all understand it, whether we're a hero archetype or we're not. It's something that makes sense to us. We connect with it and we understand it. Frederick, any thoughts, comments so far on my diatribe on the brand and what we've talked about?
No, I think what you're saying here is that there are distinct personalities that these companies have, and if in the research that you've had me do, we go and we talk to a company, you start to talk to the people who've been there a while and why they joined, and it usually gets back to what the owner was originally thinking, like when they really had some spirit and they went from 3 agents to 5 agents to 25, all of a sudden they've got 4 offices, or, and yet at the kernel of it, there was that excitement and that fervor and that passion that sometimes companies can drift away a little bit from it. They see some new thing come in and they think, well, maybe, they have this new apparatus that we don't have, so maybe we should be more like them.
Right.
And I've seen you lead them back and say, well, yeah, you probably do need new technology, but let's go back to the core things that fundamentally started the company. Mm-hmm. And once they tap into that and everybody starts feeling good about that, all of a sudden their brand comes alive. So a lot of it's from the very beginning.
That's the thing too. Some of the organizations that are out there, and Frederick, you're alluding to, is they go back to William Ravis, right? Or go to Jim Weichert, go to Wes Foster. I mean, some very powerful figures in our industry. These were dynamic individuals. They were able to, I always kind of allude to magnets. They're magnetic, their personalities. They attracted more than they repelled, right? We all are magnets. But in that, it's very interesting is you think about one of the challenges organizations have is as they scale, they lose sight, like you said, maybe we should do that or this, and they lose connectivity sometimes with themselves, with what really started that in that good growth. They lose sight of it, and they try to end up being they get muted, right? They get muted out in exactly who they are and there's systems that you can put in place as an organization in ways as you scale and you get bigger and bigger that you can still add that energy and that magnetism from those leaders and others in the organization. But it's a critical step to understand, what is your voice? What was your voice? Bring it back, be consistent in that message. That's what I hear you saying, correct?
Yeah, and I can even show you some examples of that where we really dug deep and found out like what the core was, and then built some marketing on top of that. If you want to see.
Yeah. If you got something, let's go ahead. This is a flash webinar, but this is good stuff.
Yeah, well, we're improvising here, but I'm just going to open up. So we ended up doing a recruiting brochure, and it could have been very easy saying, oh, this other company has a recruiting brochure, we want one like that. And then you change the logos and you say, oh, agents are really important to us and consumer comes first and all these platitudes. But instead, we just listened and said, what I really care about, and this is like up in the Pacific Northwest, JW Webb at Professional Realty Services International. At the core of it is that he always felt there was a certain amount of unfairness, and it's kind of that spirit of the Pacific Northwest too, that a little bit of rebellion against the machine. I wouldn't call him an outlaw, but I think he is not afraid to stand out. Certainly Bill Ravis was like that. So in his manifesto in the beginning, he talks about, he always felt that the agents, deserved a little bit better and why he did that, et cetera. But all of the material that we ended up producing for that guy was based on that core belief, and other people in the company were able to articulate it. So I went from there over to, the Dean brings me into more trouble. We go over to Dr. Varani, and a completely different situation here. Here's a company that's been very successful with like 50 years of history. So they're not rebelling against the status quo. They've been the status quo, but they want to show that they're a little bit more than that. And, it's a company in New Hampshire. It's a very traditional place, very New England core values. We got into that. But in this case, although they dug into their traditional roots, in new markets, as they start expanding up into Lake Pisaki and the areas where it's more of a luxury brand, and you've got the transient person who hasn't lived there for 50 years, they needed to actually bring in the identity of Berkshire Hathaway. So they started stepping into the luxury brand, which
they can pull on different things. Sometimes we talk about like a primary archetype and what is secondary.
Right. So they're the traditionalists, they're the sage, they've been there forever, but then they're also a little bit, when you talk about being able to master the luxury, I think sometimes you refer to that as like the royalty or the
royal brand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But you got to be careful with that too. And the last one I'm going to show you is now we start a new project over at Graham Real Estate. And here they've got firmly well-planted company in the luxury brand there. So you'd think they would go out all royalty and capitalize on that. And there are other people who are doing that in their marketplace, but it's not them. And when you really
do you say they're royalty because of the price point that they're in?
They're not. They could be. They could have played that up, and they could have put everything with like black with gold foil on the outsides, and pictures of them dressed to the nines and driving fancy cars or whatever. But it's not. The person who's most active in the company, Laura Kimball, you see her like driving a truck because she's going out and working at a veterinary spaying clinic. So
a dog shelter.
Right. So and she actually corrected me. So we were doing this brochure for her about who they are and what they stand for. And one of the people I interviewed said, well, you don't just apply to Graham. Graham has to come to you because there's so much desire to be there. And Laura just shut that right down. She said, no, that's not who we are. We're approachable. We're the guy, girl next door. We handle the inexpensive properties and the expensive properties. So she actually brought me back to her archetype and schooled me on the tone of the thing. So it's worth doing these exercises because as you're later creating materials, if you've done this right, it makes everything flow a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. So those are great examples, Frederick. I appreciate you sharing that. And I love the Laura story too, because this is part of what we're talking about here for everybody that's on or watching this on recording. These archetypes, when you come clear, because we say like, who cares, right? But what does this have to do with branding and who cares about all this, about the unconscious connection? Well, who cares is the successful organizations out there care. Those are the ones that are going to be consistent in their messaging, and they stay in their lane. And like Fred just gave you a couple great examples of just that. So part of this too is, here's another example, the Magician brand. This is Disney, this is Apple, for example. The goal is to make dreams come true. And one of the things you got to be careful is, however, you might have different agent personalities, because this is what happens when we work with brokerages. They say, you know what, we feel like that's going to be our archetype. We want it to be that archetype. That's from the founder. And then sometimes you're thinking as well, we have different agent personalities. We have staff that handle different responsibilities differently, properties at different price points. And you just addressed that right there, Frederick. And then clients with different needs, right? We handle our tactical challenges in different ways, but our goal stays the same. So you don't want to be, so it's not a mask, all right? It is an authentic expression of the company inside and out. It's not limiting your appeal. It's tapping into the universal signals that everybody can identify with. And that's one of the important messages here. It's not like if I position myself in the girl guy next door archetype that I'm going to exclude everybody else out. And that's not it at all. It's actually, you will resonate more if you stay in your lane. People will understand that connectivity of who you are. If you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing. So that's the idea. And don't jump around, because then you jump around all over the place. So I saw Chris's message in the chat. So sorry to. So the foundation of your brand, agents and staff, this is a way to define who you are and embody it fully. Ultimately, you will attract passionate supporters who connect with that specific persona. They will share your story and scale your brand, even if you have no marketing budget. So this is one of the great benefits in being that consistent message and how you communicate. And one of the things that we're going to encourage you to do here as we come to the end of our time is the exercise that we do through the process of the Fellows program with the organizations that we work with, is we do a full audit, and we work with them on a full audit of everything that's in their business, from their mottos and what they say, how they describe their company, what are their slogans, and then we actually get into the materials. How are the materials, everything. Frederick just gave you some examples of materials that we've done for clients and kept it in the archetype. But also, it's the thing you want to do. You want to audit your business. Number one, determine what archetype are you, and then look at your materials and make sure you're not jumping all over the place. You're staying consistent, staying in your lane. Okay. Any final thoughts on that, Frederick, before I jump into a little overview of the Fellows program?
No, but I was rereading some of these video interviews that I've done with people who've worked with Dean, and this is not a commercial for Dean. I just happen to like the guy, but I used, I've become a consultant. I used to have a kind of a dim view of consultants, because I thought they were the kind of people who would borrow your watch and sell you back the time. But in fact, what Dean does is he doesn't go in there and say, well, these are 27 things you did wrong, and well, you've got a lot of work to do and only we can repair it. He'll go in and find a company that's got and most of these companies who have come to the level that he's working with have become successful. They're not basket cases. They're productive brokerages who maybe just want to keep that razor sharp competitiveness. And so what he does is he finds that innate core truth within the company that they can build on. And then if they need to add on more additional things, that's there. But I was reading, like David Kriegler said here, we were having a little bit of an identity crisis. We've been the market leader for a long time, and now a lot of the new model and new competition coming in, we're starting to turning our head at every barking dog and wondering if we had some magic bullet. And in the end, we started going through the modules and Dean showing us what we actually had. And so to sort of rediscover that you're doing a couple of things that people actually really value, but you just aren't telling everybody, or you aren't articulating it correctly. That's the kind of thing that I would hope you pull out in your brand, that rediscover that 85% of it is perfect anyway. And then maybe packaging it and getting everybody on the same page with it is the next thing.
Yeah, coming that alignment piece, Frederick. Thank you for sharing that. It's getting everyone in alignment, understanding. That's one of the biggest challenges organizations have, and one of the number one reasons why organizations fail on their mission is there's lack of alignment from the top. The top visionary knows where they want to go. They have a drive, they have that magnetism I mentioned earlier, kind of gave some examples of it. But if you don't share that and have that ability to share that alignment of that future, where you're going, what that brand is, kind of keep everyone consistent and be able to hone that message, you'll lose people in the process. And it'll make it more difficult for sure. So that's something. I had a conversation just earlier today with a client, and he was talking about, sometimes it's also a sense of lack of confidence. Sometimes, like you said, new entrances, a shiny penny, here comes a squirrel, 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 and everyone starts thinking about maybe I need to do something. Or a lot of times they just got to hone in their message and back to their roots, like you had mentioned earlier, understand who they are as an organization and really elevate that. There's a lot to be offered in your current operations. If those of you guys are watching this, I mean, you're constantly looking to improve yourself. That's why you're watching this. This is why you're, going out and reaching out for other insight into how to run a better organization. All that's something. So you got a lot to offer there. Have that level of confidence, because frankly, that's one of the most important things that we know in leadership is that you're confident, because people can sense that. It's like dogs in fear. So let me talk a little bit. I'm going to give you an overview real quick here, guys. This is where I move into the commercial phase. And give you an oversight of the fellows program. And it's just some insight. If you do look to have some support and work with myself and Frederick and people within T3 to help support you in the growth of your organization, we do have a program called the T3 Fellows Program. It basically is for leaders. Again, and we have large teams that go into this program. They're looking to create efficiency and more higher levels of profitability. And we have brokerages. It's typically about an 85-15 split there. 85% are brokerages, 15% are the large teams that come into this program. How it works, it's a monthly program. It live online module presentations. We start the month with an online presentation, one key area of the business. It is foundational. We start with a really bedrock foundation of understanding your business. We look at how you're performing. We give you insight. We benchmark it. Talk about best practices in some key areas so you can start honing in what you're looking at, what's going to help improve your business. And then we build off of that. All right. This brand module that we're talking about now, we just gave you a little taste of the brand module. That's module 4. We build up to that, and then we move into 2 modules on recruiting, and we dive into a lot of other things as well. So individual work. So we have individual work. Materials are supplied. We do small group meetings. So we collaborate. It is geographic exclusive. So those who sign up first get that ability of saying, hey, that's my market. Nobody else in the program, in that class, is going to have or be in that market unless they say it's okay. Individual consulting. I have also clients reach out to me on outside things, outside the curriculum. We say we're part of your executive leadership team during the course of the time we work together. So we're there to help you in addition to the curriculum. We do have annual retreats. We actually meet in Austin, Texas twice a year. And we just had one. Next one's going to come up. Our next class starts in September. We're going to open up enrollment on June 1st. So if you have interest, you can go right to t3fellows.com and you'll see information on there. Chris put it in the chat, and you'll see there's an application there. It's an application only process, and if everything looks good, you roll into the program. We'll start in September, and that goes for a 12 months as we go through it. Requirements: you must be committed to growth. You also have to have stable revenue. This is where you're really working on your business. This is not sales coaching. This is about how to run a better business, more efficient, more profitable business. So we're really taking that CEO, COO role and looking at how you're running your business, your operation, and supporting you in that area. Here's some examples of some folks who have gone through it. This is Paul Barron. He runs the largest Central 21, the Central 21 Leading Edge in Canada. He went through our fellows program. He continues to be a client in our alumni program. And through that process of going through it, he came in as he's one of the organizations who come in. We have very large organizations all the way down to relatively very smaller organizations that have a good revenue stream, like I mentioned, as a requirement. So, but he went from 3 billion to 4.2 billion, increased his agent count, a couple hundred agents, had some tremendous growth through this. He's one that had multiple locations, and he took that out and shared that with his multiple managers and his locations. That is something that we do now as well. We didn't do it back when Paul went this, but now we actually have the bandwidth and support to large organizations where we come in and work directly with the management team and help them implement new strategies to improve their performance. Matt Curtis does a phenomenal job down in Huntsville, Alabama. Matt came into us. He was at 7 agents. He went to 37. He was at 209 transactions, went to 1,085. Closed 243. This is 219, but he also doubled his 7-figure profit when we went through 2020. And he continues to be it. Went through the fellows, went through the alumni program. And then David Davin. David runs Portside Real Estate Group up in Portland, Maine. went through our T3 Fellows program, continues to be alumni member, has just tremendous growth, went from 128 million. She currently just hit $830 million at the end of last year. She's in 2 states. She's growing, doing some phenomenal things, moved out of her role as in sales into her CEO role, which was part of her strategic intent. That was part of her positioning of our organization. That's another exercise that we do with leaders, is create that vision of where they want to go. And then we help you create that and break that down into a roadmap and help you get there. So next steps, application. It's right online on T3 Fellows. It also has a lot of information about the program. And we also have a tremendous amount of videos on there of past clients, current clients that have gone through the Fellows program. So you can get some insight from an outside third party. Review and interview call. What happens? You fill the application out. If you just have questions, want to hear more about it, fill it out. It comes to me. I'll schedule a time with you. We'll schedule a call. It's typically, the calls last 30 minutes roughly. We'll dive into your business. You can tell me some of your biggest challenges, and then I'll help you in that process, and also give you some insight into the Fellows program. And if it works for you, fantastic. And if it works for us, it's a good partnership. Personal commitment, monthly contract. There's the Fellows right there website that gives you some insight into that. And that's it, guys. So thank you so much for joining us. Frederick, I want to thank you for all your insight and all your expertise in the brand and the marketing space. It's great to have you here. Great to work with you. And anybody else there, if we can help you in any way, please reach out. And we'll do this, as you know, every month. Our next webinar next month will be another flash webinar on some key topic of running your brokerage or running your business in a more efficient, more profitable way. And we look forward to seeing you there. All right. Thank you all. Take care. See you, Frederick. See you, Chris.
Bye.
Bye, guys.